Hello, I'm Stan. In this video, I would like to go through some of the changes and events as football developed through the early years. Sheffield are regarded as the first football club. They were formed in 1857 when the cricket team wanted something to occupy themselves with in the winter months. They also published their own set of rules in 1859, which are regarded as the first rules of football. The rules became widely used in the north of England. The Football Association was formed in London in 1863. Representatives from 11 football clubs from the London area met with the intent of drawing up a common set of rules. The rules were used for the first time when Barnes played Richmond at Battersea Park. As the FA rules did not stipulate the number of players, the game was played with 15 players per side. By 1866, there were two main competing sets of rules, the Sheffield rules in the north and the Football Association rules in the London area. Sheffield challenged the Football Association to a match in 1866 and a set of rules was drawn up by the Football Association. Rugs, which were similar to touchdowns in rugby, were used to decide the winner in the event of a draw. The game was to be played at Battersea Park, with London representing the Football Association, winning by 2 goals and 4 rugs. Sheffield had no goals or rugs. The original offside rule stipulated that a player was offside if he was nearer the opponent's goal than the ball. This restricted passing the ball forward. The law was changed in 1866 to 2 opposing players between the goal and the player. Thomas Uden, a local theatre owner, sponsored the first ever football competition, which was held in Sheffield using the Sheffield rules. 12 teams from the Sheffield area took part, with the final to be played at Bramall Lane. The game was scheduled to last 90 minutes. In the event of a draw, up to 1 hour of extra time could be played, with the first team to score being declared the winner. Hallam won the game with 2 rugs in the final minutes of the game. On the 9th of July 1867, Queen's Park became the first Scottish football club. Strictly an amateur club, they became very dominant in the early years, playing in 2 English FA Cup finals and winning the Scottish FA Cup on 10 occasions. Andrew Watson became the first black international when he captained Scotland whilst playing for Queen's Park in 1881. The Cromwell Cup became the second football competition. The Sheffield rules were to be used, with the final to be held at Bramall Lane. 4 teams entered the competition, with the Wednesday and Gaelic reaching the final. With the score at 0-0 after 90 minutes, 1 hour extra time was allowed, with the first team to score being declared the winner. The Wednesday scored after 10 minutes, ending the game and making Wednesday the winners. The trophy remains on display at Hillsborough. In 1871, the Football Association decided to organise a competition for its members. The competition stipulated that there would be 11 players per side and the games would last for 90 minutes. As the competition progressed, it was decided that there would be a neutral referee who would stand outside the pitch. Around 2,000 spectators paid the £1 admission charge at Kennington Oval to see the Wanderers win 1-0 against the Royal Engineers. Although there were 4 previous games described as England versus Scotland, it was unclear who should represent Scotland. The issue was solved when Scotland picked the entire Queen's Park team. As the 2 associations had different sets of rules, they had to agree on a set of rules for the game. The game was scheduled to begin at 2 p.m, but had to be delayed for 20 minutes to allow the 4,000 spectators to enter. The Scottish Football Association was formed in March 1873. By October of the same year, they had their first cup up and running, with 16 teams entered. The final game was played at the original Hampden Park, which was Queen's Park's home ground. The game was not without controversy, as Clydesdale were playing against a strong wind when they appeared to score after 10 minutes. Queen's Park complained and the goal was disallowed. The rules at the time stated that the teams changed ends after a goal was scored, which would give Clydesdale a very strong advantage. The Football Association of Wales was set up in 1876 to organise international football matches. Inspired by the English and Scottish football associations having cups, the Welsh Football Association decided to have their own. The tournament began in 1877 with Wrexham beating the Druids 1-0 in the final, which was played at Acton Park in 1878. The pitch was a roped-off area measuring 76 yards by 120 yards long. The winning goal came in the final minute of the game. The Football Association of Ireland was formed in 1880, becoming the fourth national football association. The majority of teams were from the Belfast area. There was very little interest in football outside the 6 counties that would later become Northern Ireland. Moyola Park won the first competition in 1881, which was their first and only cup win. The Irish League was inaugurated in 1890 with 8 teams, 7 from the Belfast area and Milford, who withdrew at the end of the season from County Armagh. With Scotland dominating England in the international games, it was decided to form a team of the best English players. The team was formed in 1882 and named the Corinthian Football Club. They adhered to strict amateur principles, playing only in exhibition and charity games. They beat 1884 FA Cup winners Blackburn Rovers 8-1 and 1903 FA Cup winners Bury 10-3. Between 1894 and 1895, Corinthians twice supplied all 11 players for the England team, the only club ever to do so. In 1882, Old Etonians became the last of the original FA Cup competitors to win the cup. Their final opponents, Blackburn Rovers, became the first Northern team to play in an FA Cup final. Blackburn Olympic became the first Northern team to win the FA Cup in 1883. The smaller working men of Blackburn defeated the Old Etonians with a combination of passing skill and a diet which included eating oysters and abstaining from beer. In 1884, Blackburn Rovers followed their Lancashire rivals Blackburn Olympic by winning the FA Cup, which they went on to win in 3 successive years, becoming the second and last team to achieve the feat. Queen's Park contested the 1884 and 1885 finals, the only Scottish team ever to do so. After Wales and Ireland had joined England and Scotland in playing international friendlies against each other, the International Home Countries Tournament began in 1884. The competition lasted until 1984. Arbroath achieved the world record score when they beat Bunnacord 36-0 in the first round of the Scottish FA Cup in 1885. 20 miles away, Dundee Harp beat Aberdeen Rovers 35-0. The referee had actually recorded 37 goals, but was persuaded to reduce it to 35 by Aberdeen. Arbroath also had at least 7 goals disallowed. In 1886, the International Association Football Board was established to standardise the rules between the home countries. It is still operating today. In 1887, Hibernian played a Preston North End touring side. Preston were at the time regarded as the greatest side in the world and known as the Invincibles. Hibernian won the game 2-1 and claimed to be the world champions. Preston achieved England's highest score when they defeated Hyde 26-0 in 1887. During the first half, Hyde centre-half Bowers had to leave the pitch injured. Although he did not return to play, another player later took his place. With substitutes not allowed at the time, it is not sure whether the referee and players did not notice or a blind eye was turned as Preston were leading 12-0 at the time. With the objective of keeping the British Indian Army fit, Sir Mortimer Durand organised the first Asian Trophy in 1888. The competition, originally under the control of the British Indian Army, is now under civilian control. The competition has been held annually with the exception of the World Wars. The competition now awards 3 trophies to the winner. Renton, the Scottish Cup winners, claimed to be the world champions in 1888. After previously winning against Preston and Sunderland, they played the English Cup winners West Brom in a challenge match at Queen's Park Ground, Cathkin Park. The game was played in very poor conditions and they refused a request by West Brom to delay the game. The pewter World Cup trophy made for the occasion is on display at the Hampden Park Museum. The Football League began in 1888 with 12 teams. Preston North End became the first winners, winning the league without losing a game. In the same year, they also won the FA Cup without conceding a goal. Football had often been played on Christmas Day to increase attendances, in some cases twice on Christmas Day and again on Boxing Day. The first league Christmas Day fixture was between Preston and Aston Villa. Christmas Day fixtures would remain until the 1960s. The Northern Football League was formed in 1889 and attracted many teams from the northeast of England. It was the first of many regional leagues and claims to be the second oldest football league in the world still in existence. In 1889, the Football Alliance League was started with 12 teams. The league ran for 3 years before it was merged with the Football League, which in turn led to the formation of Division 2. When the Football League began in 1888, the lowest 4 teams were required to seek re-election. After the first season, the bottom 4 were all successful in their application to stay in the league. At the end of the second season, in 1890, however, Sunderland were elected to the league at the expense of bottom club Stoke. Sunderland became the first side from the North East to join the Football League. Scotland introduced its own Football League in 1890 with 11 clubs. Renton were expelled for professionalism. Queen's Park refused to join, citing their amateur principles. Rangers and Dumbarton finished the season on an equal number of points, and the Scottish Football League had no other way of separating the teams other than a play-off. After 2 drawn games, it was decided that the title should be shared. In 1893, Woolwich Arsenal became the first London and southernmost team to join the Football League after being elected to Division 2. They were also the first London team to play in Division 1. With many teams turning professional and poaching the amateur players, it was becoming increasingly difficult for the amateur teams to compete and win trophies. The FA sanctioned the FA Amateur Cup. There have only been 2 teams that have won both the Amateur Cup and the FA Cup. Old Carthusians, which they achieved by winning the Amateur Cup in 1893, and Wimbledon after they beat Liverpool in the 1998 FA Cup final. Promotion and relegation from the second and first divisions would be decided by test matches, played on a knockout basis, with the bottom 3 teams of the first division having to play against one of the top 3 teams in the second division on a neutral ground. The winner of the tie would be invited to play in the first division. The losing team would be invited to play in the second division. The test matches would later develop into a league format. Notts County became the first second division team to win the FA Cup. John Logan, who scored 3 goals in the final, died 2 years later. Having to play in his ordinary clothes during a heavy rainstorm and travel home in them, he caught pneumonia and eventually died. The Southern League was formed in 1894 and it became a strong opposition to the Football League as they did not have the strict age limits of the Football League. As a Southern League team, Southampton twice reached the FA Cup final in 1900 and 1902, with Tottenham winning the FA Cup in 1901. In 1920, many of the Southern League teams joined the Football League, becoming League Division 3, later renamed Division 3 South in 1921. Football had been played by ladies for many years. In 1895, the British Ladies Football Club was formed. Many of the ladies played under pseudonyms to protect their identities, such as Nettie Honeyball and Mrs. Graham. They were usually played after the men's games. Some of the games attracted violence and caused pitch invasions. After winning the FA Cup against local rivals West Brom, Aston Villa had the cup displayed in a Birmingham shop window. During the night, the shop was broken into and the cup was stolen and never recovered. Aston Villa were fined £25 and had to replace the trophy. A former Aston Villa player who had started a silversmith business was commissioned to make a replica. For the first time, the World Championship was played between the league champions of both Scotland and England. Scotland became the world champions, beating Heart of Midlothian 5-3 at Tynecastle Park. Standing at 6 feet tall, the Sheriff of London Charity Shield was played for between the best amateur side and the best professional side, with the proceeds going to charity. The competition was held annually until the FA replaced it with the FA Charity Shield in 1908. The shield was eventually sold to a private owner. The Test matches developed into a league format. On the final day of the 1898 Test match, Stoke and Burnley only needed to draw, and both teams would be promoted. The score was 0-0 with no attempts at goal. Both teams denied any collusion. Newcastle and Blackburn complained. Eventually, Division 1 was increased by 2 teams, and all 4 teams were eventually promoted. The playoffs were scrapped and replaced by automatic promotion and relegation. The 1900 Paris Olympic Games put football on the world stage. It was classed as a demonstration sport. Upton Park was chosen to represent Great Britain. Upton Park were declared champions. Many regional leagues had charity competitions. Tottenham won the first Southern League Charity Shield in 1901, beating local rivals West Ham at Plumstead, which was Arsenal's home ground. After beating Sheffield United 3-1 in a replay at Burnton Park, Tottenham became the first and only team outside the Football League to win the FA Cup since the league began. In goal for Sheffield was 6 feet 4 inch 22 stone Fatty Folks. As football was being organised in many countries, the 1901-2 two-legged World Championship was the final time English and Scottish teams would organise a competition and claim it to be a World Championship. Scottish Cup winners Heart of Midlothian defeated English Cup winners Tottenham Hotspur 3-1 on aggregate. Dumbarton has a retrospective claim to be the first world champions. Being the Scottish FA Cup winners, they beat 1883 English FA Cup winners Blackburn Olympic 6-1. To provide funds for the families of the 1902 Ibrox disaster, a competition between the league champions and cup winners of England and Scotland was organised, with Rangers donating a trophy which they had won in 1901. The competition was won by Celtic, who still own the trophy which bears the inscription "Awarded to Rangers FC". The turn of the century saw changes in the laws of football, with the pitch becoming recognisable as a modern football pitch. The 1904 St. Louis Olympic football competition was competed for by 3 teams, 2 from the USA and the eventual winners Galt from Canada. The Football Association replaced the Sheriff of London Charity Shield with the FA Charity Shield in 1908. It was to be contested by the winners of the Southern League and the FA Cup winners. Manchester United beat Queen's Park 4-0 in the replay. The 1908 Olympics was held in London and was competed for by 6 European teams. Although Great Britain was the official name of the team, in reality it was the English amateur team. Great Britain won the tournament, beating Denmark 2-0 in the final. Sir Thomas Lipton sponsored a competition held in Italy in 1909 that would be made famous in the film The Captain's Tale. West Auckland, a team from a County Durham mining village, was entered and won the competition, returning in 1911 to successfully defend their trophy, defeating Juventus 6-0 in the final. The trophy was on display at a local working men's club until it was stolen and never recovered. In 1910, the Jubilee competition was organised to create an interest of football in France. Played for by selected English teams, it was run for 3 years. The trophy weighed approximately 100 weight, which is about 51 kg. By 1911, the FA Cup trophy was seen as outdated and a new design was needed. The FA commissioned a new trophy which was to be made in Bradford. Bradford were the first winners of the new trophy, winning it for the first and only time in their history. The 1912 Olympic Games was organised by the Swedish FA, attracting 11 teams. The final was a repeat of the 1908 final, with Great Britain beating Denmark 4-2 in front of 25,000 spectators. As with the 1908 Olympic Games, the English amateur team represented Great Britain. By 1913, the Football Association decided to change the format of the Charity Shield. It would be contested by a team of amateurs who would play a team of professionals. The competing teams were told that they must bring a pair of dark knickers as the shirts would be provided. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you have enjoyed it. I have dedicated the video to my Uncle Arthur Williamson, who guided my football education.